Hello and welcome to a Patreon exclusive episode of Allegedly Astrology, where we break down the astrology that happened during some of the biggest scandals and events in history.
And we want to kick off this episode by welcoming one of our new patrons, Daria.
Cool name.
Very cool name. I would name a daughter Daria.
Cool
That's
cartoon.
Dana
Wonder if
and
your name
Daria.
after her cartoon.
I like
yeah,
that.
that could be your long lost twin.
Oh my gosh,
Dana.
Daria, is it
Daria.
you? Are we Gemini twin?
All right, Dana, what are we covering on this episode?
We're covering not my twin, Ruby Franke.
Yes. Is
Steve.
it Frankie?
Yeah, Ruby Franke.
Right.
So, in honor of the month of the mother, this is May, we are talking about quite possibly one of the worst and trigger warning mothers of all time. And we will be talking about child abuse. So, if this episode isn't for you, skip it. We've got another good one for you coming up this month. So,
Maybe email us and let us know what is for you.
yes, that's
Yeah.
true. We would love your suggestions. So, Ruby Franke is a convicted child abuser, mom, and mommy vlogger who used to run an incredibly popular YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. Ruby was always known for her kind of strict parenting, but that escalated after police were called to the house that she was sharing with her business partner to find her children extremely emaciated and covered in wounds. And Ruby is now serving a sentence of up to 30 years in prison. So let's take a look at her and her astrology.
Okay, so Ruby comes from a family of Mormons. Her parents were missionaries. They were very down for the Church of Latter-day Saints. She is one of 5 children. Again, they are Mormons. They love a bunch of children. And her sisters also are family vloggers.
Yes.
wow.
And Ruby was married to her husband, Kevin, and they had 6 kids together. And Kevin said that Ruby's sole ambition in life was to be seen as the perfect mom. Not to be
Wait.
a perfect mom, to be seen as a perfect mom, which is a very interesting
There are-
choice of words.
If there are 8 passengers, who's driving?
Yeah, that's a
God.
good question.
It's God, Dana. Jesus
Oh,
is taking the
wow.
wheel.
Yeah, and he
Could you imagine if that was it?
I don't know.
Wow.
All right,
But there
so
are 6 kids and 2 adults.
Dana, what's Ruby's big 3? Tell us about her chart.
She was born on January 18th, 1982 in Salt Lake City, and we don't know what time she was born, but she's a Capricorn sun and a Scorpio moon. And
I
so
bet
she's
she's a
tough as
Virgo
nails.
rising.
What?
I bet she has a Virgo rising.
Why did she?
Just
Yeah, I guess that is a
that is
very-
big
She just like
perfection.
no
wants
wire
to be
hangers.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she also has her Mercury in Aquarius, her Venus retrograde in Aquarius, her Mars in detriment in Libra, her Jupiter in Scorpio, and her Saturn exalted in Libra. She was born during eclipse season betwixt a lunar eclipse in Cancer and a solar eclipse in Aquarius. So she, like everyone else born during eclipse season, will experience extreme circumstances in life as she's looking to do so.
Damn.
So she's a Capricorn sun. She's determined, particular, ambitious, controlling, stern, maybe withholding, very managerial. And her sun squares its ruler Saturn, which is exalted in Libra. And so squares they're tense. They're these aspects that make you tense and maybe compulsive. You need to act either way. And since Saturn is applying to her sun. And so it's always a good idea to check which planet is in the superior zodiacal position. That will help elucidate how an aspect or a transit will manifest. In her case, with Saturn exalted in Libra, she's inclined to blend in and maybe not make things about her. With Saturn applying to her sun, it's more about blending in than it is about the sun sort of challenging Saturn to step out, if that makes sense. And then she also has her sun exactly square Pluto in Libra. So that's, not surprising, I guess. Pluto is also in the superior position because it's in Libra with her Saturn. And so this is really controlling things from behind the scenes. Because again, with Libra Saturn ruling a Capricorn sun, it's not about shining. It's about appearing a certain way. But she also has Mars detriment in Libra. And so this really challenges her exalted Saturn. Since Mars is the planet of conflict, she might have been more likely to fly off the handle instead of having that really nice Libra Saturn restraint.
I think she did have a little bit of a temper is kind of what the documentary made it seem like in some
Nothing is
Yeah.
unreleased
scarier.
footage.
That's so scary. I feel like a Libra with a temper is very scary.
Yeah,
My mom has
def.
a mad voice, and I'll just be like, "You're doing your mad voice, and it's scaring me." Um, and so also she has her sun conjunct the South Node, so she was born before a South Node solar eclipse. I don't know how she was raised, but I don't think she was encouraged to be her own person.
Well, no one really in the Mormon faith is,
Well,
you
Paul
know.
Paul Walker, he was a star. We're Mitt Romney, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
The 2 Mormons
Anyway,
that
Sun
make a name.
conjunct the South Node, I feel like has to be real, real tough.
real
Yeah.
tough.
And so this is just another way the ego will express itself in the shadows, especially because so she has her Saturn in Libra, which is where the sun's in fall. And then she has Aquarius placements, which I'll touch on in a bit. And that's where the sun's in detriment. And then with Saturn applying to her sun and then the South Node conjunct her sun, it's not necessarily not having a sense of self, but sort of not really maybe exploring it or being allowed to show it. And so her sun's also in an out of sign conjunction with Venus, which again is retrograde in Aquarius. So yeah, another tough placement. Venus retrograde will internalize desire and pleasure, and that can look like struggling to feel worthy of love, although often maybe not showing it. And if, she can't even articulate those types of feelings, then she probably wouldn't be able to show her kids love, as the courts have proven. And her natal Venus rules her Libra stellium. So again, this is where she has both of her malefics and her Pluto, and her Chiron, also in Taurus, is also ruled by Venus. So this chart is not easy. And then her moon's in fall in Scorpio. So this is really rounding out this sort of horror chart and giving sharp objects, I would say. She abused her children. I think she probably was abused herself, or she perpetuated mommy issues. With a Scorpio moon, then you can have a mom who dealt with something hard. You can have a tense relationship with your mom. I feel like her mom's shadow became her shadow, and her shadow, she shifted onto her children. And her moon is ruled by Mars in detriment in Libra. So there are a lot of really cool and good ways this could manifest. But for her, it didn't. So with Mars in detriment in her 12th house of her moon, her feelings are kind of her own enemy, right? The 12th house has to do with hidden enemies. And for her, if she's never really explored her feelings or been allowed to sort of, feel them, then they become everyone else's problem. And then her moon's conjunct Jupiter and Scorpio. So this is nice, at least. I'm kind of giving Kris Jenner a momager in the background. But alternatively, since Jupiter is abundance and the moon is mothers, it's also making money off her own children. So yeah, a lot going on. A lot of tough stuff going on in her chart.
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting her chart to be like a little different, but it's
What were you expecting?
definitely. I thought she was going to have a lot of Virgo because she is so always wanting to be perfect. The takes of her when that they show in the Hulu documentary, she kind of just flies off the handle because she'll hear a noise in the background when she's trying to do her takes. And she's very pretty and very well manicured and put together and wanted to always make it seem like her kids were perfect. But
The thing
yeah,
that stands out to me from the doc is when she made that, I don't know, like 45 item checklist for her future husband.
mhm.
And she had all these male suitors. So she would write the names up at the top and then slowly check off. And then whoever had the most check marks, that's who she ended up being with. But her husband admitted that he saw that list accidentally and then he studied it and then basically made it a priority of his to check off the boxes. It
Deserved to
was
win,
crazy.
He tried.
He tried. And yeah, so that's where
Which
the Virgo
That's
rising.
Yeah. I mean, that's also surprising to me. Well, now he's like a shell of a man,
Yeah.
but I can't see him being like, I'm going to win her over because now he's just so.
I mean, he was psychologically abused for sure, but
That's true.
we'll get to that.
So, okay, that's Ruby's chart. Ruby starts a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers, where she documents her family life in Utah. And fun fact, there's a lot of Mormon vloggers because women are not supposed to work outside the house. So having a vlog or like being an influencer, like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, they're all influencers because that's something they could technically do from the home. And they all see it as they're spreading the word of the Book of Mormon to all of these people.
Like
So
encouraged by the church because it's almost like propaganda for them, right? They want these women to be influencers and take up as much space on the internet as they can because that's their best recruitment tool.
yeah. So that's what she was doing. All her videos were showing a typical suburban Mormon family. She's homeschooling them, she's cooking, they're hanging out and just chatting. And her initial claim to fame was giving pretty controversial parenting advice. She was very authoritarian and strict.
Yeah, and they kind of hit YouTube at, like, the perfect time. Family vlogging channels were surging in popularity, and she was posting 5 days a week. At one point, they had 2.5 million subscribers, and their
Wow.
channel had over 1 billion views, and they were making so much money on the platform that it became their main source of income. So, what was going on when they launched 8 Passengers on YouTube?
It launched on January 15th, 2015, and the sun was in Capricorn and the moon was in Scorpio. Imagine that. So it's Ruby, solar, and lunar return. Also, Mercury was conjunct Venus in Aquarius. Mars was in Pisces, Jupiter was in Leo, and Saturn was in Sagittarius. So the sun is conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. This is starting a successful business, and maybe like by any means necessary, it will succeed. And or maybe it's just sort of nodding to the inherent corruptness of it, right?
Right, like using your children to make
Yeah.
money.
I feel like
Yeah.
this child influencers, it's just yeah, I don't it makes me feel sick. And Mercury is conjunct Venus in Aquarius, and it's opposite Jupiter in Leo. And so Venus conjunct Mercury in Aquarius depicts sort of the egalitarian family, right? It's communicative, and it's in Aquarius, which is, the collective. For them, it's like everyone's equal in this family, or except for they're not because the mom is an authoritarian ruler. And then Venus is all about love and what connects them. But it's opposite Jupiter in Leo, who wants to be a star. Jupiter in Leo is so fun. So this is really like putting your family out there to be admired and liked and sort of like wanting to be liked, honestly. I almost wrote that. And then when you said that, I was like, that is what was going on. That's what this astrology at least reveals. And Mars is conjunct Neptune and Chiron in Pisces, and Mars squares Saturn in Sagittarius. So Mars or squares are tense aspects, and this entire square is ruled by Jupiter in Leo because it's Pisces and Sagittarius. So again, this drive to be famous and perceived is really strong, really driving the ship. Mars is action, Neptune is fame, Chiron is injury. They square Saturn and Sagittarius, who will really overshare if it means being successful. Saturn has to do with sacrifice. Sagittarius is oversharing. It's like Sagittarius is also pretty naive. So I don't know, but it sounds like maybe they weren't naive. It sounds like her husband was naive, at least. Uranus is conjunct the South Node in Aries, so this is just you don't know what you got till it's gone, but also it's a surprise ending to this whole thing, especially because it trines at Jupiter and Saturn in Sagittarius. So there's a fire trine, and Aries ends it all.
Yeah, this chart to me is interesting because I mean, a lot of the stuff in this chart is similar to stuff that Ruby has in her own chart, like the Mercury and Venus in Aquarius. She has that in her chart. Also, it's like you're using the internet to talk about family values, which is a little bit different of family values because not everyone homeschools their kids. They had a different parenting style. She becomes like really famous. She is the face of mommy vloggers at the height of her fame. Like on Mother's Day on YouTube, it was a photo of her and her family,
Jesus
which
Christ.
is, yeah. And then also how you said like Saturn and Sagittarius is a little not childlike, but naive.
Naive, yeah.
A lot of the stuff that eventually led to her downfall, I feel like she shared naively. Like she would talk about her parenting style in a way that was like giggling kind of about it. And then it would get her in trouble because people would be like, oh, what you actually are talking about is really concerning and messed up. So,
Her chart does give arrested development a lot, which obviously doesn't excuse abusing your children at all, but it just sort of makes it less surprising, I think. Yeah, and like you said, it's her solar and lunar return, and then when we get to her solar return a few days later, the North Node is conjunct her natal Mars, and Uranus is opposite her natal Mars, and Saturn is conjunct her natal Uranus. So it's just the malefics combining with Uranus. This combination will be impulsive, ready to die on a hill for something that they just learned yesterday. And this sort of colors, I think, the entire venture of being a YouTube, a mommy blogger. Uranus transits are just intense and they can be creative, which I mean, I guess it was a creative pursuit, but they make people. So I don't know. I'm just giving her the benefit of the doubt in saying that maybe she was lucid before, but it doesn't sound like she was. Then also Pluto in Capricorn squares her natal Mars in Libra, and this is Ruby Frankenstein. I couldn't help
Oh,
myself.
wow.
Frankenstein.
So dumb.
Also in her progress chart, Mars stationed retrograde when she was 33, which is how old she was when she launched it. So Mars retrograde in
Wow.
Libra in the 10th house from her natal sun, which is also like the
Oh,
exaltation. It's
wow.
just the beginning of a lot of events, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of action.
I mean, definitely tracks. So we kind of have alluded to, there was criticism of some of the things Ruby was saying as tips or things that she had done to discipline her children, but they kept building an audience. However, there were a few things that really got people talking. First, one of her kids, her oldest son, this is the naive thing that I was talking about. There's a video of her and her son, and they're kind of sitting next to each other. And she's like, "Tell them what I did to you." And he basically goes on to say that due to his behavioral issues, she said that he had to sleep on a beanbag for 7 months until he
What?
was fine again. So, yeah, so he didn't have a bedroom for 7 months, and he just had to sleep, I think, in the basement or the family room or something.
The
And
floor would be more
everybody
comfortable than a beanbag.
yeah,
I know.
beanbags are very weird, but everybody in the comments after that video was like, "What is she talking about? How is this a punishment?"
Yeah. And then another time, Ruby's youngest daughter was sent to school without a packed lunch because Ruby believed her 6-year-old daughter was old enough to prepare and be responsible for her lunch. And I think Ruby was the one that was like bragging to the YouTube people like about it.
Yeah.
It's not like this was a found out thing. She wasn't trying to hide this. So this kind of led to a lot of outrage and some YouTube and TikTok users making their own reaction videos about the family, which then gained their own kind of cult following.
So
Yes, and
I just feel like she doesn't ever punish to teach. It's always to learn through suffering,
yeah, like,
which isn't
there's
really how
another
people
clip
learn.
of her where she threatens to, like, cut up her small child's teddy bear. I forgot what she said, but she's like, "If you yell one more time, I'm gonna cut up your teddy bear." And the little girl's like, "Please don't."
It's so perverse.
I know.
I hate that.
But these controversies kind of mark the beginning of the end for her YouTube channel. And because of the backlash, she starts posting less. She's went from posting like all the time on the daily to 2 or 3 times per week and then not posting and then eventually deleting the channel.
So during this time, her oldest son was experiencing quote unquote behavioral issues, which nothing seemed to be super out of the ordinary. It was just like a teenage boy kind of being a little dick sometimes, but he wasn't doing anything bad. But he was sent to see a Mormon counselor named Jodi Hildebrandt.
And Jodi was raised by devout followers of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so a strict portion of the Mormon faith. She had this counseling business called Connections. At
With a
one time,
capital X in the middle. That's how you
yes.
know it's a cult.
And at one time, it has to be said that her license was suspended for revealing client information to church leaders, which is not something you're supposed to do. But she was someone that the church would refer people to for their counseling. And she specifically worked as a therapist in porn addiction. And it's worth mentioning that, pornography is considered a very big sin by the Mormon church. And they see it like as a gateway to murder, basically. They're like, If you watch porn, your life is going downhill. Like, it is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so Jodi and Ruby get close during this process, and they even start their own YouTube channel together. And at one point, Jodi moves into the house with the family, which is a crazy thing for a quote unquote therapist to do.
Yeah.
And
So stupid.
Jodi and Ruby have a really interesting, kind of fucked up relationship. So let's check out their synastry.
Okay, Jodi was born on June 15th, 1969 in Tucson, Arizona, just like Haley Bieber. And she has a Gemini sun and a Gemini moon if she's born before 4:52 a.m. or if she's most likely born after that. She has a Cancer moon. She also has her Mercury in Gemini, represent her Venus domicile in Taurus, her Mars retrograde in Sagittarius, her Jupiter in detriment in Virgo, and her Saturn in Taurus. So, looking at their synastry, both of them have both their moons are trine in water signs, assuming that Jodi's moon is in Cancer. Although I was gonna say it seems like she could be a Gemini moon, but it seems like she's definitely a
Because she's
Gemini
a
sun
little
with a
bit
Cancer
less.
moon.
It's
Like
because she's a little lesy.
I just feel like she's so emotionally manipulative, which would be a really solid combination for a Gemini Cancer sun.
Mm.
But yeah, Jodi has the upper hand with her moon being domicile against Ruby's Scorpio moon. So this means that Jodi can both help Ruby open up, maybe mother Ruby a bit, as I'm certain without knowing anything that her mom failed her too. Or she can also use emotions to control or manipulate her. And if she did, I feel like this would be sort of enjoyed on both of their parts, if that makes sense. It would be, I don't know, a fun game for them to play. And Jodi's Mars is retrograde in Sagittarius, is conjunct Ruby's Uranus. So Uranus is highlighted once more here. And again, when Uranus is present in synastry, there's instant attraction. And in this case, it alters her life forever, especially with her natal Uranus and Sagittarius. Sagittarius wants to die on a hill for something, but then especially with Uranus there, it's sort of like it can be instant. She wants to dedicate her life to someone or something she believes. I mean, honestly, it probably felt awesome, despite also Uranus and Mars being prone to extreme violence.
I was gonna say, it's interesting that Jodi has Mars retrograde in Sagittarius because she was weaponizing religion against people. And that's what her and Ruby did together, especially with the kids. They used their religious beliefs as this reason to abuse the kids.
I'm glad they're in jail, but I feel like men get to do that all the time. Ruby's Uranus and Sagittarius is also opposite Jodi's Mercury and Gemini. And so the Gemini Sagittarius opposition is pretty copacetic as far as oppositions go. It's just really fun, a little nuts. This would have ramped up their interest in each other even more. You know, they could have stayed up all night talking. It would be really magnetic. Look, we love to talk to each other, talk, talk, talk. Just, just high on talking. It's
Yeah.
like, especially if they're Mormon, that, you know, could be the greatest high of all time.
We're saying that, I mean, there might have been a romantic connection between them because eventually Ruby moved into the bedroom with Jodi.
Like, it's weirder if they weren't.
I know.
Yeah, that is true.
Just having my therapist is just going to move in here and we're not going to fuck. Like, I don't know. Nothing crazy is going on. Something crazy better be going on. You're doing crazy things, lady. And then Ruby's Neptune in Sagittarius is opposite Jodi's Sun in Gemini and square Jodi's Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto in Virgo and her nodes. So it's smoke and mirrors as it always is with Neptune. It's a fated relationship that just changes so many people's lives, which is also kind of Neptune. You drop a rock in, you know, the water and then the ripples go out much further than you drop them. There's a lot of chaos, there's intensity because now Jodi's Uranus is implicated and her Pluto too. It's just, you know, wild. And then Ruby's Venus retrograde in Aquarius squares Jodi's Venus and Saturn in Taurus. So Jodi again has the upper hand with her moon being in Cancer and their moon trine. And then in their Venus square, her Venus is domicile and direct. Ruby may have been expected to keep Jodi satisfied or appeased, or she just put these expectations on herself again. I mean, it was her girlfriend, so got to keep her happy. Jodi Saturn in Taurus also acts as a nice anchor here. It's weird because you know when you're looking at two evil people's charts, but they have synastry where you're like, I bet this was a good relationship. I bet it was so fun to be you guys for a bit. That's what I'm getting. So yeah, Jodi's Saturn really anchors all of this intense Uranus synastry. And then Jodi's Venus Saturn conjunction in Taurus is opposite Ruby's Jupiter in Scorpio. So this sort of underlines or reiterates the idea that Jodi would either be expected to be generous. I mean, she let Jodi move into her house, but also Ruby could have just like been compelled to, give to Jodi. Also, did they get rich together? They must have, right?
Yeah, they were making money. And also, the theory is one of the reasons why Jodi was like so into Ruby was Ruby had such a huge following. And then Ruby started introducing Jodi and like all the weird shit Jodi was preaching about into her stuff. So I think they did make money together because they had like connections for because
Yeah.
Ruby became a certified connections counselor.
Coach. So, yeah,
So that's such a good idea to start your own thing so that you can just certify counselors based on your own criteria.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Such a
guys,
grift.
we got to get our grift done.
I know.
And then finally, Jodi's Neptune is conjunct Ruby's moon. It's a loose conjunction, but they're in the same sign in Scorpio. So with Ruby's moon being like so afflicted as it is, and Jodi's Neptune sort of like inhibits it even further, I think, or handicaps it in a way. I think Ruby could only understand some of the scope of her actions after Jodi was, or even I shouldn't even say her actions. I think she's fully responsible, but even maybe she didn't even like understand what the relationship did to her until it was over. But but maybe she was already being bad to her children and she just wanted to like, let the world know or something. I don't know.
Well, you could tell Ruby's older daughter just hates her so much, but she said that Ruby was a terrible mom before Jodi. It's just that Jodi kind of like enabled her to be even worse.
Great. Also, I just noticed they both have their Saturns ruled by Venus, which is sort of, I mean,
Cult leadership.
yeah, like come to me.
Yeah. So things start getting weird. Again, Jodi's living in this house. She is saying that she's possessed by demons. That's like
What?
why she has to live in the house. Yeah. That was
Okay.
like the reason why they invited her to come live with them. At this point, Kevin and Ruby separate and Kevin moves out of the house. And then Ruby's oldest son is also told to leave the house until he could like stop making out with girls, basically. And her oldest daughter, who was away at college, is told that she's no longer a member of the family. So essentially, Ruby eliminates like all the adults that could protect the children out of the home. So now it's just her and the four smallest children.
Not to come down on Mormons, but it kind of reminds me of that story where the neighbor kept abducting that girl, the Mormon.
Oh, yeah, that one is wild.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So, around this time, allegations about connections, Jodi's business, are swirling. Former patients described it as a program that isolated them from loved ones and destroyed marriages.
Yeah. So these people, these former patients, allege that Jodi would methodically separate them from their spouses. And then she would tell the wives, oh, your husband is such a piece of shit. He like looks at porn. He's not a good dad. Are you going to take this? Get him out of your life. So then she would cut them off. And then all these guys would just get kicked out of their houses and destroyed. And they would never see their wives or children.
That
They would
is
just like escape.
And honestly, the
diabolical.
more we break this down, I'm like, she's just a man-hating lesbian.
No, she definitely hates men.
She
for
hates
sure.
men.
Because that's exactly what happens to Ruby's husband, Kevin. And I think the thing is their faith does play such a big role in it because if you watch the documentary, you could tell that Kevin, I feel like he's like not a good dad to me, but I think a lot of it, while he tolerated so much stuff, was one, he was brainwashed, but also he believes so much in the Mormon faith that he was like, if this is the way that I could like redeem myself and my family through this sanctioned church psychologist, I will do whatever I can do and, and to get my family back.
Yeah. And none of the family members hear from Ruby for a long time. Her oldest children had moved out or had been kicked out of the house. The husband is like, Jodi and Ruby said that you're not allowed to contact us. We'll contact you when you're ready. But all of that changed when an emaciated boy with open wounds and duct tape marks on his ankles showed up at a neighbor's house asking for help.
And that boy was Ruby's son. So the neighbors called the emergency services and they looked at this kid and were like, "What the fuck?" And then more people were sent then to the house where Jodi and Ruby were living, and they were searching for the youngest child there, and they found Ruby's 10-year-old daughter in the house, and she was also very malnourished and abused. Both children were taken to the hospital where the boy was treated for severe malnourishment and deep lacerations in his skin that were consistent from being tied up by a rope.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the neighbor had a Ring camera, and so they released that footage. And, like, watching that kid walk up to the door with his emaciated legs, it was horrifying.
Yeah, it's, like, honestly heartbreaking, and the guy, when he's, like, calling the police,
He
like
starts to cry. Like,
yeah.
he's like,
Oh my
"This
god.
boy, like, something horrible has happened to him." But,
That is so
um,
sad. I'm so happy that that kid, like,
I know,
the
it was
human
so
spirit. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Like,
I don't
so
know what would have
thankfully
happened if he didn't escape from the house,
that's
I think they
but
would have died.
they would have died. So after that, Jodi and Ruby were charged with 6 counts of felony aggravated child abuse. So Dana, what was going on when they were arrested?
this was August 30th, 2023 in Irvins, Utah, and the sun was in Virgo, the moon's in Pisces, so it's a full moon in Pisces. It was ruled and Mercury was retrograde and exalted in Virgo, and Venus is retrograde in Leo, Mars is detriment in Libra, Jupiter is in Taurus, Saturn's in Pisces. So the sun in Virgo shines a light on facts and the innocent, and the moon in Pisces really acts as the savior. This is what this axis is all about, and it's sort of being really pure in its expression in this way. Pluto is in Capricorn, squaring the nodes. And so this is power and fate. Pluto is applying to the North node. And so, I mean, it's possible that Pluto applying to the South node, I guess you could argue it either way, but Pluto applying to the North node is like we're moving in the forward direction. We're sort of, we're moving away from child abuse as some sort of accepted, way of child rearing. And then the full moon's also conjunct Saturn, so justice is served. And again, with Mercury and Venus both being retrograde, we're going back to the past. Like this is already a famous family, but it's sort of like going back to check on these kids who were probably obviously in danger to a lot of the viewers. Also, Ceres, which is the asteroid goddess related to nurturing and mothering, was conjunct the South Node in Libra. And so this is removing the mother,
Damn.
right?
Literal.
Yeah. And then looking at the transits to Ruby's chart, Pluto's conjunct Ruby's sun, so she's being punished for abusing her power. Pluto's also retrograde, so she abused her power and now she's getting found out. The South Node in Libra is conjunct her natal Pluto, Saturn, and Mars, again, stripping her of her power and exposing like the ugly things she did. Libra's such a pretty and sweet sign, but it's showing the opposite side, the I don't know. She wasn't fair. She was sinister as hell. And then Venus retrograde in Leo's opposite her natal Venus retrograde in Aquarius. So this is also exposing her for failing to love and protect her children and being the greatest danger to them of all. And with Venus retrograde in Leo is also conjunct the Jupiter of the chart for the day that they launched the YouTube. And once again, retrogrades will call back to the past. Jupiter is related to liberation. Venus is about actual love. And Venus retrograde can be like hard to look at, And so this obviously sounds like it was.
Yeah.
But with Leo, the human spirit triumphs.
So Ruby and Jodi were held without bail, and then Ruby pleaded guilty to starving and abusing her children.
And during the trial, Ruby said her kids were possessed, and Ruby and Jodi believed that the abuse they were inflicting on to their children was justified because of their religious beliefs.
But the jury did not care. So both women were given the maximum sentence, which is potentially up to 30 years in prison. How much time they'll each ultimately serve will be determined by the state's parole board. But what was going on when they were sentenced?
This was February 20th, 2024. The sun was in Pisces, the moon was in Cancer. It's a water trine, so both of their moons are implicated. Did Ruby cry?
I think she did. I think
I don't
she
know.
was
I haven't seen her cry. That's like not part of her vibe.
well, she
Yeah.
didn't cry, like, she expressed remorse for what she did.
Did it seem genuine? I guess it doesn't matter. This just seems like I would see tears. But also there's this Aquarius stellium. There's a Venus Mars conjunction in Aquarius, exact, and then Pluto's right there
She
too.
did.
Oh, she did
She
cry?
bawled before the judge.
Oh,
Yeah, she cried during her sentencing hearing. She sobbed and cried while addressing the court and apologizing.
yeah.
Well, you called it.
Thanks. So yeah, with Venus and Mars, this is again, it's her Venus return, but it's opposite where Venus was retrograde when they got arrested, and now Venus is in Aquarius. Conjunct Mars, where again, it doesn't really care if about their religious beliefs. Like this is just terribly unjust. And
Yeah.
a jury of your peers is really Aquarius, right? If any sign is a jury of your peers, it has to be Aquarius. But with Pluto there finally at 0 degrees, it's once again coming to sort of serve justice, at least for someone. And then Mercury, this is the topic that everyone's communicating about due process and getting attention for who you are, but it's not positive attention. So, she really wanted to seem a certain way. I don't know if that dream was still alive by the time everything else happened, but the original goal really shattered at this time. And Sun was conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So again, it's discipline, it's shining a light on evil in the world. And then looking at her transits, Pluto, Venus, and Mars are conjunct Ruby's Venus. So I almost feel sad for her. I don't really, but this is just really exposing the shadow. I feel like her chart is there's a lot of shame that I can see in it. So at least the kids are free though. And then the South Node is conjunct her Mars. So since Mars rules her natal moon, it's possible that she felt maybe attacked as well as exposed. But maybe this was actually the beginning of her, like, honestly, I think the freest she might ever be is in prison. If she's around women who can tell her what's up and she can overcome whatever sick personality disorder she has, which is very possible, then, there is room for redemption and she can, you know, still have like a real relationship with God. Not that hers wasn't real before, but, it wasn't.
People
I don't
This
mean that.
story is huge in the media. Like, there's a bunch of movies and documentaries made. There was a Lifetime movie, of course, called Mormon Mom Gone Wrong, the Ruby Franke story. Ruby's oldest daughter, Sherry, also published a memoir detailing her experience called The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom, which a lot of people say is actually a pretty good memoir. And then Hulu also released the docuseries that we've been talking about, Devil in the Family: The Fall of Ruby Franke.
Yeah, the daughter definitely has done a lot of therapy. She was really well spoken in the documentary.
Yeah.
So, where's the family now? Ruby is in prison. Kevin, Ruby's husband, filed for divorce from his wife. The youngest children were put into protective custody, and then Kevin moved to regain custody of his children. The two oldest children were already adults at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't clear, like, if he got custody or not because their case is sealed because of the
Oh.
Because they're minors.
yeah. So, we're not sure. I'm assuming he probably will, but two of the children actually supported a bill that went before the House Business, Labor, and Commerce Committee in Utah, and the hearing was regarding a bill that would require parent creators who generate income off their children to put a percentage of their earnings into a trust fund, because there are no laws for child labor when it comes to creating content.
So crazy.
So that's bleak. But Dana, what are some predictions you have for Ruby?
Honestly, she's had some like pretty big transits coming up. Pluto's conjunct her Venus, February 10th through March 3rd, 2025, and then again July 9th through about August 4th, 2025. And that will be maybe a big time because so Uranus enters Gemini on July 7th, and then that will begin her Uranus return, which is, I mean, it's a midlife crisis. Hers is going to be behind bars, but maybe she experiences that as her redemption in terms of like seeing her as a human being and not just like a horrible monster. I don't know. Maybe she like reads, Gemini, Uranus and Gemini is so into details. Her Uranus and Sagittarius really wants to believe. So this could be good for her. And then December 18th through January 8th is when Pluto is finally, it rounds out the exact conjunction, but it's hanging out by her Venus for a while. And then July 10th, 2025, there's a full moon conjunct her natal south node. This could be another loss. For some reason, I don't know, like, do women get I'm sure women get in fights in jail. Like, what if she just gets her ass beat? I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you abuse your children in jail, like, women will fucking come after you.
Yeah.
If you kill your kids, if you abuse your kids, it's not a good thing.
It's interesting that prisoners across the board, the thing that seems to unify them, men, women, other, is that if you hurt a child, you are immediately condemned. You better watch your back. But like our government doesn't watch out for kids at all. Okay. So I'm on my high horse today. Then, okay, August 9th, there's a full moon in Aquarius conjunct her natal Mercury. Maybe she speaks about something. Another thing could happen. Or maybe, I guess, with it being in Aquarius, maybe we would get a similar case. I didn't think about that. And then October 21st, 2025, there's a new moon conjunct her natal Pluto. This, I feel like, is like echoing the sinisterness, but since also with Pluto transiting her sun being sort of the thing that put her behind bars, this could be her opportunity to, begin the really painful Pluto transit of growth. And then there's a new moon conjunct her natal sun on her solar return. So she's really turning over a new leaf next year. Whenever you're getting a new moon in your solar return chart, you're getting a new, lease on life. And then April 1st, 2026 is a full moon conjunct her natal Mars. It's likely an internal experience. But, I mean, I thought maybe it could be a live action, but I didn't know that there was a Lifetime movie about her. This could really just be sort of like, I don't know, she could see herself for the first time. I feel like that if she, like, coming to that consciousness of what she's done and could really be jarring.
Damn.
Wow.
So pretty bleak prediction.
I actually feel
Not
like
looking
she has the
great.
best chances that she ever had to live. And again, I'm not saying this from behind bars, so what do I know? But
Well, yeah, you guys should watch the documentary on Hulu if you're interested in it. It's pretty tough to watch, but it's really enlightening. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the podcast. I'm Elise,
I'm Dana.
And I'm Sarah.
and this is a Patreon exclusive episode of Allegedly Astrology. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.